And are we ready? Now we got a big black mark in the middle. Let me see if I can. We're getting lots of pop-ups. All right, here we go. Good evening and welcome to the Deal Center Virtual Learning Series. I am Cheryl Cooper-Smith, the kindergarten through third grade professional development specialist at the Deal Center.
I am Amy Reddick, the birth to preschool professional development specialist at the Deal Center.
Our mission is to improve the early language and literacy skills of Georgia's children by providing research-based professional development for organizations working with children from birth through age 8. To achieve this mission, we have designed our learning series to take you on a science of reading journey with literacy experts from around the country. Throughout this year, we will take an in-depth look at reading foundations by exploring topics on early language development, phonological processing systems, orthography, morphology, fluency, comprehension, and reading difficulties. Our goal is to share how science has proven the brain learns to read and to provide you with methods, strategies, and resources to translate scientific theory into evidence-based practice. Our vision is to enhance educator knowledge and improve classroom instruction to propel every Georgia's child to read proficiently and beyond. So, just a few housekeeping items before we get started. Our team will monitor the chat box. Please feel free to type questions or comments in the chat. We will hold questions for the presenter until the end of the session for discussion during the Q&A. Any technical questions for the team, we will respond to directly in the chat box. Each learning session is recorded, so please visit the Deal Center website at georgialiteracycenter.org, and we'll pop that in the chat box for you in a few minutes, to access the videos of all our virtual learning series. Click the resource tab on the website to open the page where you'll see a tile marked Virtual Learning Series. You will find we have 2 video collection sets full of great information. The Deal Center offers continuing education units for attending our professional learning events. All attendees are eligible for the CEU credit. However, there are a few conditions that must be met before receiving these credits. To receive CEU credit, a survey must be completed and submitted by the end of each event. More information will be provided after the learning session, so please stay tuned.
Thank you, Cheryl. I'm having just a little bit difficulty advancing the slide. It worked. Okay. There we go. All right. Thank you. The term science of reading refers to the research that reading experts, especially cognitive scientists, have conducted on how we learn to read. This body of knowledge, over 40 years in the making, represents an extensive body of research explaining the cognitive and neural pathways involved in reading. Much is known about how children learn to read, why some struggle, and how to effectively instruct and intervene. As parents, educators, and caregivers, we must ask ourselves difficult questions about how children are being taught to read. Does the instruction they are receiving align to the science of reading? Recently, the Atlanta Speech School hosted Emily Hanford, an educational reporter, to discuss how research has proven the brain learns to read in relation to how children are actually being taught to read in many American public schools. While many educators in our country are learning more about this body of research, there are still many that are not following the science. In this video clip of Emily Hanford, she presents the consequences of following old methods of teaching reading and what happens when we do not follow the science?
The big problem that we are facing in this country is that reading instruction is based on an assumption about reading that turns out not to be true. The assumption is that as long as kids are in an environment that supports and encourages lots of reading, they will become good readers. When kids struggle to learn how to read under these conditions, there are typically two responses. One, there must be a problem in the home. The child wasn't read to enough. Or two, there must be a problem in the child. He or she has a disability. But usually it's neither. Most of the time when kids can't read, it's because they weren't taught how to do it. So what are the consequences of all of this? Well, look here. These are scores on the most recent National Assessment of Educational Progress, otherwise known as the NAEP. The NAEP shows that more than 50% of Black fourth graders read below basic. Half of American Indian kids and nearly half of Hispanic children are below basic too. And white kids aren't doing so great either. 54% of them are at basic or below. Right now in this country, reading instruction is tilted in favor of the few who do not need much instruction to become good readers, and the few who can get what they need in spite of the instruction because they have parents who can pay for what they need. Fixing the problem begins with recognizing that it does not have to be this way. Teachers deserve to be taught how skilled reading develops. They deserve to be taught what they need to know to teach kids how to read in a direct and explicit way. And kids, all kids, deserve this kind of instruction.
On behalf of the Deal Center, we want to encourage all of you to continue following the science and implementing the practices that change lives. In the first box on this slide, you will find a link to the full version of the event hosted by the Atlanta Speech School with Emily Hanford titled Unpacking the Science So All Kids Can Learn. In the second box, you'll find a link to the Zaner Bloser Science of Reading Hub. To learn more about the science of reading, Zaner Bloser offers a 3-part series featuring Laura Stewart, the president of the Reading League. In this series, she explains the what, the why, and the how of the science of reading. In the third box, you'll find a link to Amplify's Science of Reading podcast series. This podcast series delivers the latest insights from researchers and practitioners in early reading. Each episode takes a conversational approach and explores topics related to the science of reading. And in the big box to the right, I've included a link to American Public Media, which will direct you to several groundbreaking podcasts featuring Emily Hanford. Cheryl, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Sorry about that. I was muted.
It's okay. It happens.
So everyone, those links have been added to the chat box for your reference. So you'll see that there's the Deal Center website link, as well as all of the links that Amy mentioned for your convenience. So please be sure to grab those. So Amy, thank you for sharing the importance of following the science. It's so important and we need everyone to be aware. And now, if you were with us for the February session, then you are familiar with the knowledgeable and dynamic presenter we have planned for you this evening. She received rave reviews and the first time around, and she kindly agreed to join the Deal Center for a second engagement. It is my pleasure to welcome our featured speaker who will guide the learning and share her expertise for this evening's session, Dr. Pam Kastner. Dr. Kastner is an educational consultant at the Pennsylvania Training and Technical Assistance Network, also known as PATTN, in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, where she serves as the state lead consultant for literacy. Dr. Kastner currently co-leads Pennsylvania's dyslexia screening and early literacy intervention pilot program. In addition, she is part of a research team investigating the impact of explicit instruction in advanced phonemic awareness on student literacy outcomes. She has served in a number of leadership capacities in the district level and served as a Pennsylvania Distinguished Educator for the Pennsylvania Department of Education. Dr. Kastner is a national letters trainer and a certified reading specialist. She also serves as the president of the Reading League Pennsylvania and a moderator for the Science of Reading, What Teachers Should Have Learned in College, a Facebook page. Without further delay, I would like to welcome Dr. Pam Kastner. Amy, if you wouldn't mind, please stop sharing so Dr. Kastner can get ready to share.
Had a little bit there, sorry about that. Hi, everybody. We're going to go to the Padlet in just a moment, so I'll start there. Thank you so very, very much for that warm introduction, Cheryl and Amy. It's such an honor to be with you here once again at the Deal Center. It was a wonderful experience before. I love the participants. We had such a wonderful time learning together, so it's an honor to be here again. Before we start, what I would like to do is to take you to a Padlet. If you were with me last time, I shared a Padlet then as well. A Padlet is a resource to curate items to facilitate learning. And I have created a Padlet just for this session. I want to take you there first so that you can orient yourself to that, because we're going to be engaged with that over the evening. I'm going to place the link in the chat for you, and then I will go there myself. So it's right there in the chat. And I can also, I'll bring it up as well on my screen. So I'll just give you a moment to go there. Please let Cheryl or Amy know if you're having a hard time getting to that link, and I'll go there myself. Okay. Okay, there we go. All right, so I'll give folks just a moment to get to the Padlet. Okay, so I wanted to orientate yourself to the Padlet so we can facilitate our session this evening. The first column that you'll see is the presentation. This is a PDF of the PowerPoint presentation that I'll be engaged with this evening. We will be watching a really powerful video. It's 12 minutes long, so we won't be able to watch the entire thing, about the first 7 minutes, but still we'll gain a lot from watching it. So later on, if you'd like to watch it again, or you would like to watch the full video, you can find it here. We will also be
password.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did password protected for you. Thank you. The password is Deal Center. Thank you. Goodness gracious. I'll just put that right in there too, into the chat. This is just for you.
Yeah, Dr. Kastner, if you need me, I can put it in for you.
There you go. Okay.
You got it. Okay.
Yes, there you go. Okay, so we'll also be breaking out into breakout rooms to look at some level text and peruse the phonics patterns that are part of these level texts. So as you can see, we're going to have 4 different passages, and we'll maybe look at that, Cheryl, when we go to breakout rooms. We thought we would need 20 breakout rooms. We'll see if we'll still need that many. So I'll orient you to that when we get to that part. Also, since our focus is decodable text, and decodable texts are aligned to phonics scope and sequence, I placed an example of a phonics scope and sequence here for your review. We will also be engaged in learning more about Linnea Airey's phases of word reading. And this is a wonderful resource to continue your learning in that area. There will be a graphic related to Linnea Airey's phases, and I wanted you to have a full page example of that. We will have a checklist for when we move beyond decodable text, and I placed that into a Word document for you so you can have that when you are done with the session. We will be looking at a phonics lesson plan, and examples from the West Virginia Phonics are on this Padlet that will be a part of this presentation. Dr. Susan Hall from the 95% group has graciously allowed me to share her transfer to text process with you. And this is a narrative explaining that. We'll also explore protocols for engaging in decodable text small group learning. And last but not least, there is a Wakelet here that has numerous resources to support your continued learning and implementation of using decodable text in your classroom. All right, so please let Cheryl or Amy know if you're having trouble accessing the Padlet, because there's so many items on this Padlet that we'll need for our presentation. And I will go to my PowerPoint then. Alrighty. There we go. I don't understand why it keeps going to that first one. So I'm gonna have to go to the front. There we go. Okay, so if you haven't been able to get to the Padlet, to the link itself, I did place a QR code right there on the screen for you, so you can access it that way as well. All right, so our focus tonight is decodable text. There are text tools for building skilled readers. As teachers, we have many tools that we can use to support skilled reading for students, and this is one tool we're going to focus on this evening. I was telling Cheryl and Amy earlier, as we were waiting to start tonight, for a while when you met me at a presentation or a conference or even at Patton, I would introduce myself and say, hello, my name's Pam Decodable Text Kastner. And that was because I just have found these text tools to be so valuable and essential to building skilled readers. And oftentimes they are misunderstood. So I was on my soapbox. I bet there might be things too that you as a teacher get on your soapbox for too. So tonight I'm going to share my passion for decodable text with you, and also why these tools are so essential to building skilled readers. This is our roadmap for the evening. We're going to start out by discussing barriers to learning to read very briefly because we have limited time, but it's important for us to anchor ourselves in theoretical frameworks, which we'll do briefly this evening. Then we're going to talk about the different types of text. We'll talk about leveled text and decodable text and the attributes of each. Then most importantly, the what, the why, the when, and the how of decodable text. We'll talk about lesson to text match, which is so essential when you're selecting decodable text to instruct with. And we'll review some protocols so that when you return to your classroom, you have procedures and protocols to help you implement decodable text. Okay, so in the chat, what are some common barriers to learning to read? With your students, what are some common barriers you see over and over and over again? And then Cheryl and Amy, you can tell me what you see. What are some common barriers to learning to read?
Weak phonics instruction.
Yes, not knowing the alphabetic principle, like phoneme to grapheme and grapheme to phoneme match. Good for you.
And guessing it.
Sorry, Amy.
Sorry. Go ahead, Cheryl.
Lack of oral language and phonological awareness, word recognition, guessing.
Lots of guessing. There you go. Well, thank you for participating. These are some that I had also thought about when there are barriers to learning to read. Just as you said, letter sound recognition skills, mapping the sounds to letters, blending and segmenting phonemes, and really importantly, developing a bank of words that are read on sight, which means any word that the student comes to, they read accurately and automatically. A sight word is a word that, any word that you read without any phonic decoding that you read as if by sight. So there are two theoretical frameworks that we're going to anchor ourselves in this evening. The first is the simple view of reading. I'm sure you've seen this before. I believe if you were here for my February session, I also anchored us in theoretical frameworks as well. Theoretical frameworks really guide our instruction and our intervention, our material resources, everything that we do. When we think about reading with meaning, there are two main domains that influence that. First of all, decoding of text. Can we read the words on the page accurately and automatically without any conscious effort? And once we have decoded them, do we know what those words mean? Can we comprehend the language of those words? I hope you noticed that this is a multiplication problem. It's not an addition one. Reading comprehension is the product of these two big domains. Anyone in this group have a student who can read words accurately and automatically, but when they're done reading them, they don't know what they've read. So that if this is a multiplication problem, it would mean that this student has a 1 here. The words are read accurately and automatically, but when they're done reading those words, they don't have any meaning of what they've read. Anyone out there have a student like that? Yep, I think I'm seeing some things come in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we do, yeah. So oftentimes we think of these students as they are hyperlexic, which means they can read the words, but they really don't understand what the language is of what they're reading. Conversely, I'll bet that you have students who in class, if you're reading a story to them, they can tell you the characters, the setting, the beginning, the middle, the end, the problem, the solution. When they talk to you, they have rich, robust language, rich sentence structure, but when they are reading themselves in print, they struggle mightily. Do you have students like that? And I think I kind of see a lot of yeses there too.
Yes.
Absolutely, right. So you see that we can really have either profile, a student here who can decode words accurately and automatically, but really can't bring meaning to that. Oftentimes we'll say it's hyperlexic, might be on this continuum here, but a student who has high language, good verbal reasoning, but very difficult time reading words. That's a hallmark of dyslexia. And the thing is, we have everything in between. So what I'm really trying to convey to you is that this must be a 1 and this must be a 1, right? 1 times 1 equals 1. Because even if you're so at decoding and you're so with vocabulary and language, a 0.5, maybe in a 0.5, even though this is a literacy training, let's do a little math. 0.5 times 0.5 is 0.25, right? So anything less than a 1 here, anything less than a student who is skilled and accurate and automatic with the code and can also bring meaning to it, we won't have comprehension. And guess what? This isn't just for kids, it's for you too. I bet sometimes you picked up something that was unknown to you. I often say I have a brother-in-law who's a dean of biology, and I always read his research when I get to see him. I have a strong 1 here. But what do you think I have over here with comprehension of the language, of the vocabulary, of the sentence structure? Do you think I have a 1 there? I don't. So here I am, the age that I am. I've loved to read my entire life, and yet I don't have a 1 over here for comprehension, right? So it's to tell you that these 2 domains are at play for everyone who's attempting to read with meaning, whether you're 5 or 6 and you're learning to decode and read the code, or whether you're as old as me, these 2 domains are always at play for your reading comprehension. Now this is highlighted because we are going to be spending a lot of time here tonight, all right? But I don't want you to forget that we need both components, a 1 times a 1, to get to reading comprehension. But we will be spending most of our time here. Decodable text are giving students lots of opportunities to practice the skills that you've taught them so that the words become known as if by sight. Because we know even if students are accurate, it's not enough. I also bet you have students who are accurate reading words, but they read them so slowly and put so much effort into them. By the time they get to the end of the passage and you ask them, tell me about what you've just read, they can't tell you because they're not automatic. So decodable text is a tool to support accuracy and automaticity of the code. So think about any person who has a job like you do to teach these wonderful skills. Think about a carpenter or a plumber, right? We all have specific tools in our tool belt that we use, right? So a carpenter, if they are trying to nail 2 pieces of wood together, right? They're not going to take the tool out of a planer. What will they take out? They're going to take out a nail and a hammer. So you as a teacher, you have at your disposal different text tools to support students' skilled reading. Decodable texts are the tools that you choose when you are supporting your students in becoming accurate and automatic readers. You want them to have a strong 1 here, at the same time that you're building their oral language. Okay, so Hollis Scarborough expanded on the concept of Goff and Tumler's simple view of reading. What she did is she took, the word recognition that we saw in the simple view of reading and language comprehension, and she looked at the research and said, what contributes to word recognition? What are the underlying skills that students need to be skilled at reading words? And what are the skills that students need to have strong language comprehension skills so that they can read the words and they know what they mean? So under word recognition, I was here in February. We spent a lot of time talking about phonological awareness, the ability to analyze the speech sounds of our English language so that we can map letters and letter patterns onto them and decode them and store them as sight words. This is where decodable text is really giving students lots of practice with decoding new novel words that they've learned in skills, patterns, phonics patterns, so that they become known as if by sight. So they don't have to decode them anymore. We always want to be asking students comprehension questions no matter what they're reading, because we always want to convey the message that we read for meaning. And we can answer lots of questions about decodable text. They may be quite literal, but we always want to make sure that we're asking comprehension questions for anything that we're reading. Because as you can see, right, these two parts of the rope are woven together seamlessly to have a skilled reader. This is whenever I work with parents and I try to support their learning about the complexity of skilled reading, I always bring out the rope because it really shows me all the component parts that are part of skilled reading. So I can't not do it. It's too important. All right, so we're going to compare different types of text. In the time that we have, the text that we're going to focus on are decodable text and predictable text. So what I want you to do, what I'm going to do right now is going to close out here. I don't know if you guys have ever seen a Jamboard, but I'm going to go to my Jamboard. Okay, make sure, can you guys see that? Yay, okay. So we have two columns, decodable text and predictable level text. And we're going to brainstorm the attributes of each. So I've already started us off. I put a sticky note here and said, well, when I think of decodable text, an attribute is it's controlled. That means it is controlled based on the phonics patterns that are aligned with the goals of that text. And when I think about predictable text, I think of them as being repetitive. So what makes them predictable is that they are repetitive. So think about brown bear, what do you see, right? A predictable or level text. So what are some attributes that we can brainstorm together? Cheryl and Amy, we're going to tell me what you put in the chat, and I'm going to put it right up here on our Jamboard. I'm going to add those sticky notes. So let's start with
simple words that follow the rules.
Okay. Simple rules.
Follow the rules. CVC words.
All right, good job. All right.
Easy to memorize patterns.
So tell me where is that going to predictable text or decodable text? Whoever did that one.
She said predictable.
Thank you. I thought I was going to go there. Easy to memorize.
Phonics patterns that have been taught.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, good. Scope and sequence, or in parentheses, decodable.
Okay. You have an esteemed group here, Cheryl.
I know. I'm so impressed. Good job, everyone.
Me too. Okay. Let's see if we can maybe get some more for our friends over here, our green friends.
Let's see. Words with syllable types that can be taught. Let's see. Predictable may not be one-to-one, but memorized.
Wow. Right, here. And Cheryl, say that one to me again.
Okay, predictable may not be one-to-one, meaning a 1-to-1 ratio, you know, 1, quote, 1.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, quotation, not quotation, colon, 1:1.
Okay.
But memorize.
One more, and then we'll stop there.
Words with syllable types that have been, well, we got that one, I think,
Yep.
that have been taught. Let's see. Did I miss
Seems like
any?
That's what I'm looking. I'm going
Okay,
back.
sounds like this group is, well, if we had to look at either side, it looks like our folks know a lot about decodable text. That's wonderful. Thank you.
That's a good thing.
That is a good thing. Yes, it is.
Mhm.
Okay. So thank you for that, friends. Okay, so here's just a brainstorm from Hunter and Farrell from Readsters. As you said, a decodable text, what makes it decodable is the text is using only words for the phonics patterns that the students have been taught. So you could pick up controlled text, and it might have some really advanced phonics patterns, maybe vowel teams, vowel R, diphthongs. But would that be a decodable text for a student who's learning CVCs and K? No. What makes a text decodable as the student has been taught the phonics patterns prior and also the high frequency words, right? Again, it's written only with the high frequency words the student knows. It's not about rich, robust read alouds. The tool is used for kids to be able to read words accurately and automatically. And so the focus is on teaching decoding more than comprehension. Doesn't mean that we shouldn't be asking comprehension questions. It just means you can tell very much that this text tool, this particular one, is used to help students know how to be able to be accurate and automatic with words. Accuracy is the focus. And if there are pictures, they support the story, but they're not maybe specific to the words. So they're not leading kids to look at the picture to guess the words. They are designed to keep the kids' eyes on the print. All right. Predictable text and leveled readers, they're often, the reason they're called predictable is because they are predictable in terms of what you would expect. I taught kindergarten for many years, might be a level A book. I like cats, I like dogs, I like fish. Very predictable, the same type of sentence stem over and over and over again, repeated. Text is often with familiar subjects and there's a strong support from the pictures, all right? And they often have many different spelling patterns that the students have not learned yet. All right. So this is the video that we're going to watch. It's on the Padlet. We're going to watch 7 minutes of it. We won't watch 12 minutes, but I guarantee you, you're going to want to watch all 12 minutes at some other point in time. This is from Allison Clark from Spelfabet. She is an Aussie. You will hear that a little bit in her voice, but she's going to talk to you about what might be wrong with repetitive or predictable text. And while you're watching it, the 7 minutes, I'd really like you to do a quick write and maybe share back. When we come back, we'll unmute and ask you to share back an aha, something that resonated with you that you heard, and maybe something that you heard that did not resonate with you, okay? So 7 minutes of watching this, and then we're gonna give some feedback on that. All right, so I'm gonna go to that. There we go, that video. Oh, that's the, right here. Okay, and you have to let me know if it worked and you could hear before. Let's cross our fingers that you can now as well. All right, here we go.
I want to talk about repetitive texts or predictable texts, which are often used with literacy beginners and strugglers. So I brought along a literacy beginner here, and she's just started school. She learned a little bit about letters in kinder, and her teacher has been focusing on these, which are the most common letters in English. So she's learnt so far one sound for each of these letters. She's learnt e, t, a, o, I, n, s, r, d. And she hasn't learned other sounds that these letters can represent. So she hasn't learnt the A in cafe, or the E in bee, or the, you know, the O in want, or the R in front, or the I in high, or the E in ski. She hasn't learned in bird, or in for, or R in car, in her, or sh, or but you know, she's making a start. She's, you know, recognition of symbols for some children can take a bit of work. Now, the books that she's taking home to read at home for each night, and that her parents are faithfully reading with her. These are not actually, these are example books that I've made up using Google Images, the copyright-free images. Thank you to the lovely photographers. Because I didn't want to use someone's published book on my website if they might get cross with me for saying things they didn't agree with about them. And so we're going to have a look at this type of book. And if you have a child that has used these kind of books before, you'll recognise the formula. We'll have a look at it from the literate adult's point of view, and then we're going to have a look at it from her point of view. So here's the first book, At the Park. So it's about an interesting topic for children. It's got nice pictures, something familiar. I see a slide, I see a swing, so the sentences are not long, not a lot of words, nice big print. I see a seesaw, I see a climbing frame, I see a tree, I see a dog, I see a magpie, I see a frisbee, I see a football, I see people at the park. So that should be pretty easy for beginners, yeah, you think? 33 phoneme grapheme correspondences. Now, our little girl only knows 10, but she's being encouraged to look at the picture, look at first letters, think of what might make sense, and have a go at reading this book, regardless that it's got so many spellings in it she doesn't know. Also, it has quite a bit of syllable complexity. So vowel or consonant, VC is a vowel consonant word, so at, for example, or up. Consonant vowel would be like to, or words that, anyway. So they get longer and longer, and there's quite a lot of long words with some consonant blends, 2 syllables in it. Swimming, just whip through this one. Dogs like swimming, dolphins like swimming. All right, let's see how you go reading it without looking at the text. Seals like swimming, whales like swimming. Very good. What a good reader. Can you read the next page? What are you reading? Hippos like swimming, fish like swimming. Oh, you're very good, aren't you? And you've never seen this book before and you still know how to read it. Frogs like swimming, ducks like swimming. And platypuses like swimming. No, it's not platypi. Platypuses. Looked it up in the dictionary, to be sure. I like swimming too, although some kids will say kids like swimming. But anyway, sometimes teachers will say, oh, good girl, you got it right, even though what the child said isn't actually what's on the page. Phoneme grapheme correspondence is 34 and quite a bit of syllable complexity. The last one, at my party, there will be hats, there will be games, there will be presents, there will be balloons. You didn't have to read the text to know that's what it said. There will be pirates, there will be blowers, party blowers. Anyway, so if you said pirates, in some schools of thought in reading, you'd say yes, good, and accept the word pirates for the word costumes, even though pirates starts with P and costume starts with C. But that's seen as a minor point to the overall kind of getting the gist. And there will be potato chips, that's what Australians call crisps if you're from the UK and watching this. There will be lollies, that's what we call candy or sweets. That will be Aussie here. There will be cake, my party will be fun. Phoneme grapheme correspondences, 35, lots of syllable complexity, not just simple syllables, long words with 2 syllables and triple consonants there. Now, so we've had a look at them from the adult's point of view. They look pretty good and pretty transparent. We know what they are. Now let's look at them from her perspective. Here's the first book with just the letters that this student knows and the sounds that the student knows, so et, a, o, I, n, s, d, they're all in black and normal print. The ones she doesn't know are in wingdings. And then the ones that she thinks she knows, but they're not operating like that in this word, are in red. Now, she may have learnt that as a high frequency word, so she may know that's the, or the, I would want her to say, but she might be going to e. This one, she doesn't know as a spelling, she just knows so if she tries to sound that out, she'll say or something, so she'll be not very close to getting the word right in the dialect that she and I speak. So let's whip through the book and see what it looks like when you do that to the letters. So on this page, she knows s, s and d. And, she may be able to have a crack at the high frequency words if she's learnt those, I and A. She'll say for that, unless someone tells her to say E, which she may learn from this book, who knows, but it hasn't been taught in her alphabet lessons. this looks like an but it's actually part of the So it's I can't really get the word from that. So really she's going to have to rely pretty heavily on looking at the pictures and guessing, and particularly with words like this, where there's only one letter there that she knows in that whole thing. And, you know, look at the first letter and guess and get your mouth ready. That is not going to work for that word or this one, because she just doesn't know those letters yet. This one looks very transparent to us, but if she's doing the letters she knows, it's not. It's only s and that she knows. Same for us here, dog. She only gets the last one. Well, she can perhaps guess. She might be able to guess that from the print if she could guess the rest. I see a bird would be what I would guess she'd say for that. I see a frisbee. I see a don't really know. The only letter I know in this one is T. But hey, I know that's a footy. I'll just guess. So that's that one.
Okay, I'm going to stop there. Probably enough of that. And while I go back to my screen, just finish up your quick write or your thinking, and then I'm going to ask you to share out what your thoughts are about that. Okay, I want to share out. You could share in the chat, or is it okay if they unmute themselves, share? Usually that video really gets a reaction, and I'm really anxious to hear what folks thought about that.
Okay.
I'm going to share on the screen.
Thoughts? Does it make you think?
Mm-hmm. I'm not seeing any replies just yet. They're probably typing. All right. Wow. I'm blessed my children figured out how to read with me being their first teacher. Mm-hmm. It promotes guessing. Mm-hmm. It looks like gibberish.
For the kids it does, yes, for sure.
Yeah, so to the child, yeah. Mm-hmm. I feel validated in what I've been thinking about kindergarten students starting level readers before they have their sounds. Very interesting. With wingdings implemented, you can see how the text can be foreign to students. Yep.
Awesome. Yeah, I liked her use.
It teaches sight word reading. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Yeah, it really is an eye-opener, right? As I know someone said that they were a kindergarten teacher, and years ago, same with me. I was using predictable text. My kids were still learning their letter sound correspondences, did not even yet know all their letter names and all their letter sounds, and yet they were reading these types of text. And the scary thing, of course, is I thought they were reading, right? So, right, I see Barbara said it teaches over reliance on pictures instead of reading text, right? And so years ago, I was doing running records, and I'm checking off, for example, when they would get to a word like costumes or climbing frame, yes, 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 they know that. And they had not decoded it, of course. They had looked at the picture. And so there's a lot of research out, specifically Dr. Bruce McCandless says that when students guess and read at whole words, it wires their brain more to the right hemisphere, and that's the ineffective way for a brain to wire when we're teaching kids to look at the words and sound them out. Looking at the letter all the way through, we're wiring their brain in the left hemisphere and helping them build the brain of a skilled reader. So it's all about how we're wiring kids' brains. So as teachers, we have different tools to choose to help our students learn to read words and to build their language. And when we're choosing tools, text tools to support students learning of building an accurate and automatic sight words, we want to choose a decodable text. And that, that video really just kind of shows you these predictable text from the point of view of students. And like Anne-Marie said, okay, I'm sorry, sure.
Dr. Kastner, we have an education student, and she expressed, Amanda said, it was very eye-opening to as to how students can view text.
Yeah, we look at them from ours and they look so simple.
Thank you for
Yeah,
that.
and Anne-Marie, thank you for your comment too. That's always one that really stands out with this video. I like how she covered up the words to prove the point that students aren't reading. I can still remember too, you know, as teachers, when you learn new things and you say, oh my gosh, I can remember students saying, I can close my eyes and read it. And yes, they could, right? They weren't really reading it, but they were, they had memorized the pattern, right? And so what they thought they were doing was reading, and that was really my responsibility that they thought that, all right? So I thought it might be interesting for you two to actually engage in a similar process that Allison Clark is involved with. So what I've done is I've selected some sample books that were offered for free on the, from Pioneer Valley. There's a level A, a level B, 2 level Bs, and a level C, right? So those are just very introductory books that oftentimes we're using in schools. And I thought it would be interesting for you two to kind of look through those books and see what kind of phonics patterns would students need to know to be able to read them accurately and automatically, right? These books that we put in kids' hands. So Cheryl, I think we have, how many in now? So I think we'll be okay, maybe to do the rooms as we did before.
Yes, we have about 44 participants,
Okay.
so maybe 11 rooms with 4 folks in them.
Yeah, then we would just do the first, we would just do the first 3 books then. We wouldn't get to level C, that's fine. Okay, so what we're gonna do, let me take you to the Padlet just so I can really help you understand this. I wanna make sure you're fully understand and feel successful as you kind of go out into breakout rooms. And it's nice too to be working with others and talking about this really important topic. All right, so if you're in room 1 to 5, the most important thing really for you to remember right now is when you're in the room, what room you're in. All right, so if you're in room 1 to 5, when you go to the Padlet, you're going to go to this one. You're going to go to zoo animals. All right. If you're in room 6 to 10, you'll go to the text, head, shoulders, knees, and toes. If you're in room 11, you're going to go to busy children. All right, so let me just provide a model for the first room. Okay, so I'm going to go in there. I'm going to open up the text. This is a level A, zoo animals. And then you're going to look at the different.
Are you sharing something with
yes,
us?
I
I don't
am.
know if we're seeing. Yeah, we're not, I don't think we're seeing what you're sharing.
Let's see if I can share. Can you see now?
Yes.
Oh, good. Thank you. So I went to the Padlet. Let me take you back. I went to the Padlet, and here are the choices, right? Depending on the room you're in, depends on the book that you're engaged with. So I'm just going to model with the room 1 to 5 zoo animals, level A. And there's just a nice little introduction to the book. And then what you're going to do is just like our friend Cheryl did. So we see a high frequency word there, right? We see can, we would write that down as a high frequency word. But what about this spelling pattern here, this phonics pattern? We see a consonant, right? Vowel, vowel, right? This is probably a high frequency word, but here we see a consonant, vowel, consonant, consonant, consonant. What kind of phonics patterns are you seeing in the text? And you're just gonna do a quick write about the phonics patterns and the high frequency words you see in these different level text. And then we're gonna come back and talk about it, okay? So Cheryl's gonna put you in breakout rooms for just 6 minutes, not very long. I do, if you don't mind, please choose somebody in your room to be a volunteer to share out. So I won't have all rooms share out because we just don't have the time, but I might say, room 1, would you mind sharing out? So you might have a voluntold kind of thing going on, but one of you, if you wouldn't mind being the spokesperson when you come back, that would be great.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to check for understanding and give some time for anyone to ask a question about what they'll be doing. I don't want anyone to feel stressed out or not know what they're going to be doing. Everyone feel comfortable?
No.
Please, any questions in the chat? Glad to answer those. And everyone has the, they're in the Padlet already. No one needs to get into the Padlet, needs the link of the passcode. Okay.
Okay, you just let me know when to send folks.
Yep, so you can send them away. See you in 6 minutes.
Oh.
Okay, they're going in. Everyone is on their way back. Okay, welcome back, everyone. I think everyone should be back.
Okay. I was lucky enough to be in room 1 with Dale and Jennifer and Jill. So I said I would share out, but you guys can jump in too. Wow, we had a level A book. It was the zoo animals, and anyone in rooms 1 through 5, they also had zoo animals. So you can jump in too. Let me just tell you one of the phonics patterns that students would have to be able to read. It was the repetitive pattern ICA, ICA, and so it was all about zoo animals. And one of them was elephant. And that is a VCVCCCCC spelling pattern. And a level A book, when do we give a level, when are typically level A books given to students?
That's their first introduction a lot of times.
Yeah, kindergarten.
Right
Anyone else in room 1 through 5 that would want to jump in? Because we looked at the other, there's giraffe and elephant and zebra. Anyone from my group? Jennifer, what did you say about giraffe? What would they say?
Well, a couple of things that were that giraffe is going to have the GI with the J sound.
Mm-hmm.
So because they don't have that concept yet, that they've learned just the initial sound of G for goat or whatever in kindergarten, that they're not going to be able, and it's kind of going to blow their mind as they're still learning all the other letters that there's J. I mean, the fact that C and K already say the same sound is enough, but when you go to add that G actually can say what J says, then you're even boggling their minds more. So that's a much later thing. And again, with the digraph PH in elephant, they're going to read that as P-H instead of F.
Yep. Yeah, we had some light bulb moments in room 1. Anyone else have some light bulb moments in room 1 through 5? And thank you, Jennifer, for sharing. But anyone, because you had the same book. So you had giraffe and elephant and
Yes.
zebra.
Yeah, we were wondering about because it was supposed to be repetitive text, but then when you got to the elephant, it switched from A to An, and that could be a confusion for kids because now you've gotten into the habit of saying, I see A, I see A, I see A, you know, so we caught that. And then we were also talking about that all of our students may not have the language or exposure to these animals to be able to use the pictures to support the words, because all of them have never, you know, every kid hasn't gone to the zoo or, you know, talked about the names of zoo, especially like the panda. We thought they'd just say bear. The giraffe might throw them off because a lot of the kid movies don't have that. We figured lion, everybody would know it because of Lion King, but some of those the hippo, they may have never seen a hippo, so
Right.
or know what that is called. So that was a concern for us too.
For sure. And also, if they did know the picture, did know the animals, or and I talked about this, Jennifer and I talked about this, would they likely have decoded elephant or use the picture to read that word if they knew the elephant? What do you think?
The picture.
Total picture. I like that in the chat. Someone wrote total picture. I love that. And not just picture, total picture. Thank you for that. All right. Thank you for rooms 1 to 5. What about head, shoulders, knees, and toes? That was rooms 6 to 10. Anyone want to share what you found in head, shoulders, knees, and toes? And that's a B. So again,
this is Barb. I'm sorry. First I looked at it and I thought, good heavens, look at all those vowel patterns. And then I realized, wait a minute. Once you get in that book, if you've got a couple sight words and you look at the pictures and you know the song, you don't have to read. That was an eye opener and it was scary.
It is scary, I know. Yeah, I mean, thank you for sharing that, right? Yeah, so you might believe that they're reading, right? But if they had that background knowledge of the song, they can kind of pretend read, right? So thanks for sharing that, Barbara. Anyone else have an aha with head, shoulders, knees, and toes? And again, that's a level B.
It also offered multisyllabic words so that even if you were checking for left to right progression or word print matching, when they got to the word shoulders, a student's going to double tap, or either they're going to run out of words.
And even think of the word knees. A wonderful Anglo-Saxon word with that silent KN, right? Oh my goodness. And yet here we're putting in the hands of little ones, right? Who are learning to read words and read our code. So thank you for sharing rooms 6 through 10. I really appreciate that. And room 11, I'm sorry, for a second, I'm not remembering what the title of that was. I'd have to go back to the Padlet. Room 11, would you mind sharing? You were the only one. You represented. I can go back to the Padlet and look real quick.
We looked at busy children. That's for
yes. Children, thank you.
And we did notice some sight words, and then we also noticed a spelling pattern with inflected ending of ing. The children are able to also look at the pictures as cues, but that's definitely going to be a help. And then also another piece that we noticed are the double consonants in the middle of the word. So for example, hugging, even though it has an inflected ending, they would definitely need to be taught the spelling pattern for short vowel sound words with inflected ending in order to read napping, hugging, and then looking at drinking, that is follows a different rule.
It does, right. And if you're thinking about making sure that the text aligns with your phonics scope and sequence, so thank you for being so precise with your language about inflectional endings and the doubling rule. That text is a B. So if you have a phonics scope and sequence, would you expect to see inflectional endings and the doubling rule in early kindergarten in your phonics scope and sequence?
No.
No.
This is for upper elementary grade, so maybe first grade, mid-year.
First grade, yeah. So what kind of message do you think kids get when we kind of put these books in their hands about reading? Because here's the words that I heard a lot of you say: guessing and looking at pictures. I heard that kind of a running theme in your feedback. So what do you think kids, what's the implicit message that kids get about reading with these books? What do you think?
It's all a guessing game, and nobody really knows what they're doing.
Yeah. And I'm guessing, and this has happened in a lot of schools that I have the honor of working with initially, they're teaching phonics skills. They maybe have foundations, or they have a phonics scope and sequence, and they're teaching those in skills. And then they go to the reading, the small group reading, and what do they use for small group reading?
Predictable text.
Predictable text and level text. So there's no alignment between what you just taught me and what I get to practice with. Not in terms of my phonics scope and sequence, but not even in terms of the philosophy of the authors of the book. So you can tell when you pick up a book kind of like what their theory of learning to read is, right? Because when you pick up a book like the ones we've seen here, it's about the meaning and looking at the pictures, right? And kind of guessing along the way, right? So we send implicit messages to our kids with the text tools that we give them to, right? So when you look at these from the kids' point of view, and you really start analyzing the phonics patterns in these leveled texts for early readers, what do you think about that? And then while you're thinking about that, I'll put the PowerPoint. Cheryl Cooper, wow, thank you for sharing. Yes, thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. Okay, so Yeah, that was a lot to think about. And I appreciate you, engaged in the work in the breakout rooms. Thank you so much. And I really appreciate you sharing out too, and joining me along on this path. Okay, so now I'm just going to get into some of the what, the why, the when, and the how of decodable text. So by now, probably from what we've been engaged in, that decodable text is tightly controlled, so that each text contains only the phonics patterns that the student has learned previously and the high frequency words that the students have been taught. So here's the thing, when we do that, kids can be very successful, right? Because there's nothing in the text that they're going to see that you have not previously explicitly taught, provided guided practice in before you release them to practice these patterns over and over and over again, right, in this text. And so I always say, decodable texts do not set the world on fire for adults, right? It's not War and Peace. It's not a classic novel, but it is a text that's aligned to what the student knows, and they can read them. They don't need to look at pictures. They don't need to guess. And it keeps their eyes on the print and decoding the word all the way through. That's what will help them store that word in their visual word form area. So when they see it later, they know it as if by sight. They won't have to sound it anymore. The neurotypical kid, an average kid, needs to see a novel new word 1 to 4 times to map that word, to orthographically map it. For all your kids in your classroom, neurotypical, what do you say? Are they? Is everybody in your class neurotypical? Or do you have kids who might need more than 1 to 4 exposures? Just put that in the chat. I really love. How do you pronounce your name, Sadia? I want to make sure I pronounce it correctly. Please unmute, because you're writing some great things in the chat. How do you pronounce your name?
Sadia, like Saudi Arabia.
Oh, I love it. Sadia, thank you so much. You've been putting some great things in the chat. No way. I think you're the one who put total too. So thank you. Yeah. So maybe 10 exposures, maybe 20 exposures, maybe 30 exposures. It differs kid to kid, right? Those are more at risk, will need more exposures. Where do they get those exposures? Decodable text. They see these patterns over and over and over and over again. So they are known that as if by sight, right? And decodable texts start out with these simple VC and CVC patterns, but of course, they follow your phonics scope and sequence from least complex to most complex. So they do get increasingly complex based on your phonics scope and sequence, right? Right, so there is no one universal phonics scope and sequence. But what you want to look for, of course, is one that goes from least complex to most complex. So here's one that Joan Sedita from Keys to Literacy offers at no cost, right? And you'll see it goes from least complex. We're just starting out with these common consonants. Then we go to less common consonants. Then we have short vowels and digraphs, and increasingly more complex, but right? Least complex to most complex. It's a logical scope and sequence. So what you're teaching in phonics, you're having students practice in decodable text. You should be having them spell too. Whatever they read, they should be spelling as well, but we're really focusing here on decodable text tonight. So your decodable text should align with your phonics scope and sequence. So here's a school that I had the honor of working with, right? And this is one of the reading specialists is in their book room, right? So you're gonna see, okay, here's the books for short vowels. And here are the different books, and here are the blends, and the digraphs, and the long vowels. You're seeing a sequence of text from least complex to most complex. It follows a phonics scope and sequence. Okay, so what does a book room look like? Because this school that I had the honor of working with had a very leveled text book room when I first started working with them. And now in their book room, right, you see this. You see decodable text organized by phonics pattern for teachers to come in and grab those books so that they can read them with their students. So here we're starting out with simple, right? Our simplest short vowel sounds, blends, vowel teams. Okay? Now this is Marilyn Adams. She is a genius. Her Beginning to Read book, written in 1990, is a seminal text, but she has written a chapter about decodable text. And the next couple of slides are just quotes from that. And so I want to ask you, anyone here who's learned a skill, if you've learned to ride a bike, if you learned to play an instrument, if you've learned to drive a car, any skill that you've learned, how did you get good at that skill? Anyone can unmute or put in the chat. How did you get good at that?
Practice.
Practice. Yeah. And feedback, right? Especially when you're learning to drive a car, right? Oh, look out for what's beside you, and make sure you put your turn signal on. You're getting corrective feedback in the learning process, right? But you're getting practice, practice, practice with some error correction and some feedback. That's how you became good at a skill. That's what our kids need, right? So where are they going to get that practice? You've taught these phonics skills in isolation. Where are they going to get that practice, practice, practice so they can apply that? Sharon Vaughn and Jack Fletcher, very well-known researchers in literacy, recently wrote an article and said, it's not so much sometimes that we're not teaching kids, but in this country, we have a practice gap. We teach something and we expect them to apply it without giving them the repeated practice that they need, especially for our kids who are not neurotypical. They need lots of practice. And decodable text is a way to give students lots of practice, right? They're going to see these patterns over and over and over again, right? We want that automaticity so they don't have to decode those words anymore. They see them and they say them. They store them right back here in their visual word form area. How do we get there? From practice. I often equate this to, have you ever walked through a field, a tall field of tall grass, right? Have you guys ever done that? I hope so. When you first walk through that path and you're trying to get from one place to the next, is it easy and quick? No. All right. So when students are trying to map the visual word form of the word to the phonological processor back and forth, I don't know if you can see my brain here, right? But here's where it comes in, right? Right back here in the occipital lobe and all the way up here to our phonological processor, right? The first path, right? It takes a long time. But as you're walking that path through the grass and over and over and over and over and over again, what happens?
Starts to wear down.
It wears down. And is the speed that you go through that path much faster?
Yes, because it leaves a print.
That's right. And that's what you're doing when you're giving students repeated practice with these phonics patterns. You're creating a neural pathway, right, to automaticity. Initially, when kids are decoding words, most of the blood flows up here in the phonological processor. But as they own words and read them, as if I said, it's more back here in this occipital lobe and the visual word form area. You're building a pathway to automaticity. And decodable text is a tool that's helping you do that. All right. So just as I said before, ensuring that children's earliest books are decodable rewards them for applying the phonics skills. You taught them these phonics skills in isolation. Now they get rewarded for applying them and they feel successful. I was a kindergarten teacher for many years. I have to tell you, the spring of kindergarten was always my favorite part of the year because my kids were on fire because they could read. I'm sure you know that feeling too, right? It's so empowering to see kids when they can read. They are so motivated. They want to do more of it. I bet your kids, like my kids, they would be in the hallway and they would see something. Oh, I can read that, right? That's how they feel with decodable text. I can read this, right? I am all powerful. I can read, right? So just as I said before, we're creating these traces to automaticity, right? All these repeated encounters are storing that representation of that word so we know it at a glance, right? Also, if you have decodable text, all the things you were telling me before, we looked at the picture, I think the kids were guessing. Guess what? It's eliminated because the pictures are not going to guide the decoding of a word. They will have to look at the word and decode it. And but when they're decoding it, they're going to show you where they're successful and where they need support. It's a built-in diagnostic tool for you, right? So here's my soapbox. Why use decodable text? It supports students building accurate and automatic representations of words so they know them by sight. It gives them lots of application and practice. They have to pay attention to letters and sounds. That's what you want them to do. It should be based on a logical scope and sequence. Remember back to the phonics scope and sequence I showed you, as well as the book sequence, right? There's no guessing and accuracy. You have to be accurate before you can be fast. We don't want kids who are fast and wrong. We want kids who are accurate and automatic. And decodable text is a tool, one tool to get you there, right? So when should we use decodable text? So we talked about the why, right? Now let's talk about the what and the why. Let's talk about the when. Linnea Airy is a researcher, a very well-known and respected researcher who's guided us with her phases of word reading. So there's a particular time when it's ideal for kids to be engaged with decodable text. It is a temporary scaffold. It's not a lifetime decodable text. It's a specific time when they're really beneficial for helping kids build that accuracy and authenticity. It's not at this phase. This is a pre-alphabetic phase. This is a phase usually, you know, these aren't age specific, but in general, this is when kids are in pre-K or even before pre-K. I bet you had your kids when they were little, maybe. My son did this. I had to hang my head in shame sometimes because one of the first words he said that he read was McDonald's, right? And he said French fry, French fry, French fry, but he saw McDonald's. And he'd say McDonald's, McDonald's, French fries. Did I think when he was 2 and 3 that he was reading No, this is a logographic stage where there's this paired association. They see the sign and the parent or the family member says McDonald's, or they say Coke. There's no alphabetic knowledge. It's just this pairing of a string of letters and what I call it. That's not an optimal time to use decodable text because they don't have any letters and sounds to apply to the decodable text. All right. What about our next phase? These are phases, not stages. This is a partial alphabetic phase. This is when kids are beginning to map usually the first letter, maybe the last letter when they're writing. They might write the first sound, they might write the last sound. So they have a partial representation of the word. Or these are kids who look at the first letter and guess. They're using partial representations of the word to read and to spell, right? So it's better than that visual cue where we're just kind of looking at McDonald's and saying McDonald's, but it's not quite complete. They're just starting to know graphemes, letter and letter patterns, and map them to phonemes, the sounds of our language, the speech sounds of our language. So they're just beginning to make letter sound connections, right? The full alphabetic phase is when kids are being aware, usually kindergarten to early first grade. This is neurotypical kids where they're mapping letters to sounds all the way through. So a student at this phase knows most of their letter sounds, they're phonemically aware, they decode sequentially, it means from left to right all the way through, and they use those decoding skills to read unfamiliar words, okay? So between the partial to the full alphabetic phase, this is the ideal time to employ decodable text. So there's a specific phase of reading that's ideal for kids to get this repeated practice with decodable text. Like I said, they're not going to live in these. They are going to use them to become accurate and automatic with the code. That's the tool for this. It's not the tool for building ritual vocabulary. We would use other tools for that. And then at the consolidated phase, they're not using decodable text. They are using chunks to decode and using phonograms and syllable types and blends and digraphs, right? Syllables and morphemes. They no longer need decodable text. They can attack grade level text, a grade level passage with all these different skills. So when Heidi Mesmer is a researcher who's looked at this very closely, and this is a graphic, it's on the Padlet, but it's basically showing you the window. The window for decodable text is the partial to the full alphabetic phase. Okay? So typically, you know, and again, it's typical, it's a generalization because you could be older and still need a decodable text to get that practice, but usually it's kindergarten to late first grade. Usually by second grade students, if they're typical readers, they are no longer engaged with decodable text in second grade. But again, that's a generalization, right? We have to look at the child as well. Okay, so when are kids ready for decodable text? When they know that individual speech sounds are represented by letters or letter patterns or graphemes, when they know that spoken and written words are linked to the system of how words are constructed. And then the biggest question I get after when should we use decodable text is, when do we stop? Right? You show me when, now I know when, but what are some guidelines for when I can move away from decodable text? Linda Farrell and Michael Hunter have provided some guidance for when students can move out of decodable text. All right, here's a nice graphic, right? So you can see when they can accurately automatically read one syllable real and nonsense words with these phonics patterns, 2 syllable words with these phonics patterns, reading 50 high frequency words out of context, like in a list, not in text. And then if they're reading 35 words correct per minute in the decodable text, that's telling you if they're ready to have more authentic texts in their hands, right? So I have placed this on the, this is what I've done in some of my schools is they've used this as a checklist. They actually put this on like a little ring and they check off kids, okay, can they do this, this, and that? Now they're ready to move away from decodable text. But I have placed this as a checklist for you in a Word document on the Padlet, so you have it, okay? And of course, level text we can use for like concepts of print. I think I told you last time, if you were with me, that I have 6 grandchildren, Lola, Layla, Leo, Lily, Louie, and Daphne. But when they came home from school with the texts that you engage with today, the A, B's, and Z's, I read those texts, their parents read those texts to them. They did not read them, or they just used them to show them, the kids that we read from left to right and top to bottom, all that concepts of print. But they did not have their own children read them for the same reasons that you found when you were engaged in that process. Many, many, many different phonic patterns that they had never learned, where the only recourse to read that word, and I'm putting read in quotes there, was to guess or to look at pictures. That is not how skilled readers read. Skilled readers don't need to guess and they don't need to look at pictures because they can read the words. But books in the hands of kids who are novice readers that cause them to guess and to read by guessing and looking at pictures send a message that that is how we read. So what did the school that I work with that had all those level text? And that's the next question I get is, what did they do with all the level text? This. They repurposed those texts and created knowledge bins. So all kinds of different levels in here, but Black history, Titanic, biographies. They took all the level text and organized them by knowledge building. So think back to the simple view of reading. Remember, there were 2 domains. There was word recognition and language comprehension. The books I showed you earlier that had all the phonics patterns, I hope you remember the book pictures from that. That is the word recognition part of the simple view of reading. This is the language comprehension, because both must be working to have a skilled reader. So they are reading text to students to build knowledge, to build their oral language, to build their vocabulary, to build their background knowledge. So their book room now looks like the simple view of reading. Books for reading words, for accuracy and authenticity, lots of practice, and books to help us build knowledge and vocabulary. Okay. Oh, okay. All right, I just saw some of the chat come up, so I want to check that. Okay, so here's what I'm here to tell you too. There is no magic bullet in literacy, right? Decodable text in and of itself is not going to fix everything. It is going to help your kids become more accurate and automatic at reading words, but it's part of a phonics lesson, right? So here's an example from the West Virginia Phonics. They have phonics lessons by scope and sequence, least complex to most complex. Everything is done for you, completely free. But you can see that the text application is here at the bottom, right? But before that, we're doing a warm-up activity. We're reviewing. We're engaged in phonological awareness. We're making connections to letters and sounds. We're blending words. We're doing some word work. We are encoding. We are spelling. We should always be spelling what we're reading and reading what we're spelling. Spelling is a much higher linguistic skill. If I put the word onomatopoeia up here on the screen, you could read it, but I bet you couldn't spell it. Spelling requires a much higher degree of linguistic awareness in the complete sequence of the word. If you can read a word and not spell it, it means you have a partial mental orthographic image of that word in your visual word form area because you can't spell it. You don't know it's all the letters and you don't know all the phonemes and graphemes that make up that word in the correct sequence. So yes, use decodable text, but it should be part of a phonics lesson. See, a comprehensive lesson. So on the Padlet, I have placed 2 lesson sequences from the West Virginia Phonics so you can kind of get an idea. It's 5 days of lessons, but the wonderful thing is they also have 3 passages that align with the skill that's being taught. All right, so we're going to look at a short O lesson. All right, and the reason we're going to look at that is because you want a nice lesson to text match. Right, so what it means by that is that you want to choose, even if it's decodable, you want to choose a passage that's very much in line with what the kids have learned prior. Right, remember how I said the phonics scope and sequence and the text have to be in alignment. So let's look at the math division problem that's going to help you understand what that is. All right, so here is how you determine lesson to text match. Let's say, I'm going to make it easy for all of us, that you're looking at a passage to give students repeated practice and a phonics pattern you've taught them. And you're looking at a decodable text and you say, oh gosh, okay, I counted, there's 100 words. And of those 100 words, 50 of them are decodable. They've learned all those spelling patterns. And there's 20 high frequency words in there that I have taught them. I haven't asked them to memorize them. I have taught them. So 50 and 20, oh, that's 70. So 70% of the words are decodable, right? So let's look at a passage and think about its decodability. So I want you to look at this passage from West Virginia Phonics, and I'm sure that you might be able to surmise the spelling pattern that the students had just learned. What do you think they had just learned? And this passage is designed to give them repeated practice with. What do you think they just learned?
Short O.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Beatrice. Thank you, Anne-Marie. Yes, they just learned a short O pattern. Now, if they've been given a leveled text, let's see, count on the screen if you can quickly. How many opportunities do they have to practice a short O pattern? Okay, so I hope you came up with what I did, 25. If they've been given a leveled text, would they have been given 25 opportunities to practice what they had learned in skills? Probably not. They would be reading, I see giraffes, I see zebras, I see elephants, right? So there's a direct alignment between what has been taught and what is being practiced. 25 opportunities to practice, right? Now we're going to look at the high frequency words, and we're making what Anita Archer would say is an assume aside, right? I'm going to tell you that these students have learned 20. They've been taught these words. They haven't been put on flashcards to memorize them. They've been taught them in a heart word routine, so that they are mapping letters and letter patterns and letter sounds. But they've been taught these words and they know them, right? So 25 and 20 is 45. There are 48 words in this passage, and the child can successfully read 45 of them. There are 3 story words that the child has not been taught yet. Find, help, and black. All right, there they are. Those are the words that they do not know, that they, if they've been taught all this, they should be able to read this, no problem. They've learned these spelling patterns, they've learned these high frequency words, they're getting repeated practice, so these words are known as if by sight. Practice, 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 practice. Think about that pathway in the graphs, right? You're getting a nice quick path. So we had 25 words that were phonetically regular, all the short O. We had 20 high frequency words. 45 of the 48 words were decodable and known, and 3 were not. So this is a 94%. In terms of lesson to text match, this passage aligns 94%. Would this be a passage you would want to choose for teaching short O, for reinforcing short O and high frequency words? Yes, it would. Your students will have a lot of success in reading this text and lots of practice and very little unknown. And the story words would be told to them. So they would be very, very successful. Now in the West Virginia phonics, there are 3 passages each week that align with the phonics pattern. Okay? So I wanted to share with you a way. Now you will know if you were using West Virginia phonics that you wouldn't have to worry about the passages having a high lesson to text match. They have a high LTTM, lesson to text match, right? But we want to give students alternate text of the same phonics pattern and give them ways to gradually release the responsibility to them, but also give them repeated practice. And the transfer to text process is an excellent way to do that. It's from the 95% group, Dr. Susan Hall, and she allowed me to share this in the presentation with you, all right? So there are 4 steps in the transfer to text process, right? They read 3 different decodable passages that are all focused on a target phoneme grapheme or phonics pattern, all right? Gradually, you release the responsibility to the student to read these passages and these patterns independently, but you start out very supported, right? So here's how it goes. Now I'm gonna go through each step. There are 3 passages focusing on the target phonics pattern. The first day in the passage, the students highlight the phonics pattern that they're focused on. They read the highlighted words in isolation, and then they read the passage with all the highlights. Okay, the next day, you hand them back the passage that they highlighted, and they read it. And then you hand them a clean copy, and they read it without the highlights. See how it's gradually releasing the responsibility to the student, starting out very scaffolded and supported, and gradually releasing it. This is passage 1. This is Monday and Tuesday. On Wednesday, you get a new passage. Same phonics pattern, but a new passage. You highlight the target skill in the phonics, and you read it when it's highlighted. See how this step was dropped out? There's a gradual release there. And then on Thursday, that second passage, you read a clean copy. Then on Thursday, you read a new passage, same phonics pattern, but a clean copy. Lots and lots of practice, highly scaffolded at the beginning and gradually released. All right, so let me show you how that works. So this is a passage that's focusing on, I bet you can guess. What do you think this is focusing on, this passage? Do you think it's a digraph TH? Voiced and unvoiced? There's a lot of practice there, right? So when they get the passage the first day, Beth likes broth, you highlight the targeted words. Now I bolded them for you. I didn't highlight them, but I bolded them so you could see them. Then once they're highlighted, right, students would read them. Oh, if we did this together, we could do it chorally. Beth, broth, Beth, Beth, broth, with, right? We're reading all the highlighted words. And then we're reading the passage with the highlighted words pointing out to us, right? Passage 1, very supported. I highlight the target skill. I read the words Beth, breath, Beth, Beth, lots of practice. Then I read the entire passage with the highlights really standing out for me. Very, very supported. Tuesday comes along and I hand them back the same passage with the highlights, and they read the passage. Beth likes broth. Beth likes to eat. Beth likes to eat broth with her mom. Beth and her mom have cloths with them when they eat the broth. So the highlights there to help them and point out the target skill. And that same day, then I give them a clean copy, no highlights. And they have to read the text. Okay. Wednesday, new passage. But guess what? What do you see? Beth, Smith, both, the, they, the, right? Lots of in the digraph TH practice. So I highlight the words and then I read the passage. So I highlighted the target word, the target skill, and then I read the passage with highlighted words, right? Thursday, I get passage 2, no highlights, a clean copy. Friday, I get a brand new passage, the third one, but guess what? Ruth, wrath, path, Ruth, lots of practice with the TH, both voiced and unvoiced, the target skill, but I pulled away the scaffolds. And I'm looking for accuracy and automaticity, always accuracy first. We don't want kids to be fast and wrong, but when they're reading this, I'm looking for accuracy. Are they getting faster? Are they more accurate as they go through the week with this target skill, right? Now I can count on these being a high lesson to text match too. So I share with you the West Virginia phonics to show you, to amplify what is a lesson to text match. And we always want at least an 80%. That's the rule of thumb, an 80% match between the phonics skill and the text that they're practicing in. We don't want a lot of unknowns. We want as close as we can get to 100%, because then our kids are going to be successful, right? There won't be anything in the text that they don't know. So 3 passages focusing on the same target skill, but a gradual release of responsibility. All right. On the Padlet, I want to share that, I'll take you there in just a moment so I can show you them. And I'll show you the last 2 things there that I have for you because we're right at the end. So let me go to the Padlet again. I have to move some things around here. Let me go there. And where did it go? To move this down. There we go. Now I have to share my screen again. Okay. So on the Padlet, all these resources align to everything that we went through tonight, but there are protocols for doing small group instruction for decodable text. So whenever I'm working with schools, I'm shifting into teaching in small group. They're very familiar with structures for teaching guided reading, but they say, well, how do I do a decodable text small group lesson? So there are 4 different protocols, small group instruction lessons, kind of guiding lessons that can help you do small group decodable text, all right? There is one that's been adapted at Patton that I put here, one from Achieve the Core, the 95% group transfer to text process that Dr. Susan Hall allowed me to share with you. And then, this is Lead for Learning, and this last one is Student Achievement Partners. So let me just open one so you can kind of see. And Cheryl, can you see? I want to make sure, because I know last time when I did this, you couldn't see. Can you see? Okay. So this is the decodable text protocol. As you can see too, it goes from least complex to most complex, but it goes through the steps for how you would teach a decodable text. Echo and core reading, independent and buddy reading. Students read independently or with a buddy, and then they have skills games that go along with the decodable text. Let me show you the one from Patton real quick. All right. So this very much mirrors in many ways the West Virginia Phonics, but we added more supports. So we read the formal, a familiar decodable text. So if you were maybe on the 5th day, you're moving into Friday, you might read passage 2 again. Then you would engage in phonological awareness, right? But I put some like check boxes here too. So you can kind of say like, oh, we're going to work on blending, or I'm going to work on rhyme production. It makes it very clear, right? And then the text title goes right here. Then what phonics work are you going to be working on? And these are some choices like drop downs for your multisyllabic words or high frequency words and new decodable words. Of course, we always want to be pulling in vocabulary, right? And making sure kids understand the words that they're going to come in contact with. Then they will read the new decodable text. You would ask questions, right? Make sure you're asking questions. My grandkids love the primary phonics Mac and Tab books. They're very entry level, but I'm telling you, Mac and Tab are a cat and a mouse, and they would laugh and laugh and laugh about Mac and Tab. And I thought, I don't know why you're laughing, but I'm glad that you are. But when they were done reading them, I would always, well, tell me, what did Mac do to Tab? And tell me what he did. And, you know, I'd go through the sequence, and you can ask comprehension questions, and you can, and you should, because you want to always convey the message that we read for meaning, no matter what we're reading. And then a quick write. You always want to have writing when you're doing what you're decoding, you are encoding. What you are reading, you are spelling. And then practice so we can get fluency. All right. And then last but not least, and I think I'll be right on the mark. I am, if you remember from before, I always have been curating resources for teachers. I just feel it's important to provide things for teachers at no cost that align with the science of reading. And so I have been creating Padlets and Wakelets for a number of years now. One of the Wakelets I've created is a decodable text Wakelet. So I will briefly go over that, and then we will be done for the evening. Okay. So on this Wakelet, there are 57 items you can see here. There are a number of presentations from esteemed presenters from the Reading League, Maria Murray and Kristen Munger here, and Alicia Sparks here. These are excellent presentations to continue your learning about decodable text and their importance, as well as the 95% group. If you want to know, is there research to support decodable text? Well, there's 20 pages of research on this Wakelet, and Dr. Carrie Hempenstall from Australia curated that and generously shared it. Lots of blogs to validate the use of decodable text and decodable books. So here are some guiding resources from the Reading League, all kinds of resources and text sources for decodable text. Lots and lots and lots here for you. Then I did place on the Wakelet the pictures that I shared with you of the book room, because everyone was like, wow, their book room is, usually people drool over that book room. So I want to make sure they have pictures there. And then here's a link to a resource where you can LMNO, which is searchable. You say, okay, my students know the short vowel sounds, you know, for A, I, and ah. What decodable text aligns with that? This is a wonderful search engine, LMNO, when you're looking for a match, because remember, we want a nice, tight lesson to text match. And that's going to help you with that, okay? Lots of free resources there for you. Lots of free stuff. If you're using the West Virginia Phonics, Aaron Sain has created a nice search engine for you there on a Google Drive. Here's the protocols that I shared with you for folks to access. And then Jessica Pasick, who is a national member of the National Reading League, she took the West Virginia Phonics and she made them into little books. And then she generously shared them. The only place you're going to see a picture is on the cover. Pictures don't drive it, but this is the same decodable text that you saw in the West Virginia Phonics, but she's made them into nice little books so that the kids then, you know, once they've read them, maybe they would illustrate them, but then you could send them home and they're more bookish rather than the passage. All right. So I hope that I've sold you on decodable text. As I said, for many years, if you met me, I really did say, my name is Pam Decodable Text Kastner. And it's only because I know the power of a tool that's aligned to the need. and that's the need to read words accurately and automatically. This is the right tool for that. And children love them, and they feel so empowered when they can read them. So once again, it's been a great honor to be with you this evening for the Deal Center. Thank you so much for you were so engaged and engaged in the chat, and had some really nice responses, and the breakout rooms were awesome. So thank you so very much.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, you can access, yes, oh, I'm sorry, you can access the Padlet indefinitely in the Wakelet indefinitely. The Padlet is for your presentation is just for you. That's why it has a password protected on it, because it really is just for you. Sorry, Cheryl.
No, I was going to ask the same question. That was one of the questions that I had jotted down. People wanted to know how long they would have access. So that's wonderful. Please feel free to ask questions, folks.
Okay, I don't have a question, but I do have to say, Dr. Kastner in the Deal Center, because of these sessions with you guys, I have decided to go back for my PhD in reading. I was torn between like early childhood versus reading, and you just don't know what you guys have just, oh my gosh, and the number of children this will impact and affect, and I just can't thank you all enough. So.
Oh, thank you, Sadia. That has made my week.
But I'm a teeny tiny part of that, but the Deal Center has done, as I had told Amy and Cheryl, oh my goodness, the impact that they're having, but how nice for you to share that with them. Thank you, Sadia.
I have a daughter who's 19 and is dyslexic. And this was very funny because in the book that we did in our breakout, it was elephant, and how that repetition of seeing that. And for years, as we were working through and going through all the different testing and working on I was very early in teaching at that point, and I couldn't understand. She would see any word that she didn't know that started with an E, and it was elephant. It didn't matter if it was egg with 3 letters or anything else, but enormous, the word was elephant, because that was what she had established early on in kindergarten, and every word that started with E was elephant. So I was like, aha.
My oldest granddaughter is profoundly dyslexic, and so I know the challenge, right? And so remember I said when those books came home to my son and daughter-in-law, I was like, read them to them. That's wonderful, but don't let them read them. That's dangerous. Dangerous for all children, but for a child who's dyslexic, very dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you for sharing that. That was on your heart. So thank you for sharing that.
Well, she was actually sitting here by me during some of it. Mm-hmm. And she's in college, but she's doing some online classes. So she was home and she's like, Mom, I totally identify with this. She goes, that was totally me. She goes, do you know how long it's taken me to get past that?
Like, I know, that's what I mean. So we can break the cycle before it begins, right? Yes. Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing. Yeah.
I thank you so much for this presentation. It's been excellent. But I'm very curious about the poster behind you, because I love to stress vowel sounds. And it says something about vowels.
Yeah, it's from Dr. Mary Dahlgren, who's been a part of your series. She's amazing. This is the Vowel Valley. This is the Vowel Valley from Dr. Mary Dahlgren for Tools for Reading. Yeah. Yep, it's always with me. But Dr. Dahlgren has been a part of your series as well. She is absolutely fantastic and extremely knowledgeable. Check out her stuff. The Tools for Reading is a 4.
Okay. Yeah, if you go to our website, you'll also get a chance to see Dr. Dahlgren's presentation from last month. She was our just before Dr. Kastner this month. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're good friends. I'm very lucky. She's amazing. I'm definitely willing to answer any question, but the thing is, sometimes, you think about a question like, you're like, oh, later at night or something. So please, I'll put that in the chat. Please, you're always welcome to reach out to me. I'm going to put my email in the chat right now. Please like I said, I feel blessed to help in any way I can. And I'm also, oh, yep, I'm going to put that in there too. I'll put in Mary's. So the first one is my email, and then Mary is www.toolsforreading.
Okay, if we don't have any more questions, then Dr. Kastner, we are just so thankful to you for sharing your knowledge on using decodable text as an instructional tool for developing skilled readers and demonstrating how phonics skills are transferred and applied to connected text. It was a very powerful session, so we thank you.
Thank you.
So we also thank you for your continued support. You came back, you've been a trooper for us.
It was my honor.
Supporting the Deal Center's goal to have this bridge from the theory from research into practice. And so it's been so wonderful to just hear everything that you've shared today.
Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you. Did you want to add anything else? Because now we're going to get ready to go into some housekeeping things, okay?
Just to say thank you once again, and what an honor it's been to present 2 times for the Deal Center. Thank you. It's truly been an honor, and thank you to everyone who attended, and you were so engaged and with me all the way, and really thinking about how it impacts your students. So thank you so very much for that.
Okay, well, thank you. Feel free to stay with us, but if you would like to take some of your evening back, go and relax. You work very hard. I know your voice is probably hoarse. Thank you.
See, I'm going to a patent training after this to help out a colleague. So
oh my gosh, see, I told you, you're just a trooper. My goodness. So
thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kastner.
Thank you.
Great to see you.
It's great to see you too. Take care. Bye-bye, everyone.
All right. Bye-bye. Okay, Garrett, are you ready to share with us and tell us some more details regarding CEU and the survey?
I am ready, Cheryl. Let me just pull that up for you. Can y'all see that?
Yes.
Yes.
So, hey, everyone. As Cheryl said, my name is Garrett Cook, and I am a research analyst here at the Deal Center. At the Deal Center, we operate through a model of continuous improvement, which means that we're always striving to do better. A huge part of this process is gathering your feedback from today's event. We have 2 options for completing our survey. You can use the QR code that you see on the screen in front of you. It'll be in the top right-hand corner, and it says Scan Me. And we also have the link that is provided there and will also be entered into the chat box. If you need help with the QR code, here are the steps. Step 1, open the camera on your smartphone. Step 2, aim the camera at the code to the far right that says Scan Me. And step 3, tap the banner that appears on your phone. Please answer each question about your experience today thoughtfully and honestly. As part of the survey, you will be asked to provide contact information that is required for CEU credit. I would also like to reiterate that the CEU credit will not be granted without the completion of the survey. The survey will remain open for about 1 week, so you will have access to it until the evening of May 6th. Please keep in mind that the Deal Center does not manage the CEU process, so if you need to contact the Continuing Education Office, we have provided you with their contact information at the bottom of the slide. If you would like to have a confirmation that you completed the survey, please screenshot the closing page of the survey before closing out. If you have any questions at all about the survey, please reach out to me via email or feel free to call the Deal Center main line. Amy will be putting my contact information in the chat box shortly. I appreciate you all for your engagement tonight, and I hope you all have a great evening.
I was saying, thank you, Garrett. We'll give everyone a chance to capture the survey link if they need to. Can you pop it back up for us?
I accidentally hit something. Just a second.
Okay.
There you go.
Good. And then the scan. Let's see if anyone has any issues. Let us know if you're having any problems accessing the link or the QR. Okay. I think this time around, Garrett, I don't see anyone with any issues. So
Awesome.
It's going pretty good this evening.
Always great to hear.
All right. Okay, well, then I am going to say thank you to everyone for joining the Deal Center for another evening of great learning. Please be sure to be on the lookout for the announcement on our next virtual learning. It will be coming out very, very soon. We have a quick turnaround this time because it will be May 6th. So if you haven't gotten a chance, go ahead and register. You can find information on Eventbrite as well as an email that has been sent out by the Deal Center. So we wish you all a very good night and thank you again for joining. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining.